These companies come forward and say, we're not really mass censoring, it's just a glitch. These companies are lying. I'm arguing that these terms of service, these community standards, are weapons of colonial erasure precisely because they're being levied in such a way as to silence rightful, legitimate protest and advocacy for Palestine, or often even merely documentation of Israeli colonial atrocities from their platforms. They're designed by the companies themselves, so there's very little accountability in terms of who actually is able to make much of a difference in terms of getting these processes reversed. Now, individuals can petition companies. They can say, I believe my content was falsely removed, and you can go through an entire labyrinthine process. But oftentimes it's not a guarantee you're going to get your post back. And when you do, the damage is often already done. You've lost the momentum of the moment. You may have sacrificed a lot of views. And in a sense, even with the retroactive restoration, what's happening is that the most necessary impact that the post would have been able to have has already been taken away. And this has become so routinized and so mechanized that I believe it's important to think about these things, not just as a kind of banal sort of risk of navigating the digital sphere, but they're actually an entrenched strategy for silencing and stifling political dissent and critique. And I think it's interesting that if we think back, for example, to say 2021, when we started to see uprisings for Sheikh Jarrah, it was a revelation that we started to see these companies come forward and say, we're not really mass censoring, it's just a glitch. But since that time, and this is what I get into in the book, this has become so standard at this point that we've reached this impasse where I think a lot of us are aware that these companies are lying. They're aware that what they're saying is not satisfactory, but they're also aware that we're held hostage to their platforms because they're so entrenched in everything. They know that we don't have a lot of options in terms of other places to turn to. But in this case, in addition to this political censorship, I'm arguing that these policies, these often non-explanatory, non-helpful policies really are their own tools of colonial erasure, precisely because they're so quotidian and yet they're so insidious at the same time in how they silence.
Last week, during our live stream, Twitch took us offline and they claimed that we had violated one of their rules. And while we were online, we lodged an appeal very quickly. By the time the show ended, we got a reply telling us, oh, we're sorry, we made a mistake. We've put your channel back up. But by that time, we lost viewers. They never told us in that initial notice what they claim our violation was.